Alrighty.
Hello, everybody. So I'll start off. Hello, everybody. Welcome again to the next session of the bonding bonding PEP program here with ODOT and the USDOT. Um, for those that can't make any of these sessions are being recorded, so please keep that in mind. And yeah, again, great to have. Oh, we're still continuing recording. Okay, yeah, these sessions are being recorded. And again, thank you for coming to the session and looking forward to learning a lot from our speakers here today that we have lined up for you. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Lynn. Lynn.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for attending class number 4. Uh, 2 more after today. So hopefully this information has been helpful for you though. And you're able to take some information. At least you have contacts who you can follow up with also at a later time. So I'm with the ODOT Office of Opportunity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and we are here to help businesses who are seeking to do business with ODOT. And we also help to increase the pool of diverse applicants for our job opportunities. So happy to partner with USDOT, the Small Business Transportation Resource Center, to provide another series of bonding education program or classes. So with that, we can do introductions, but if you want to just say your name and your business, that's fine. Ms. McCoy. If not, then go on to the next agenda item.
Okay, well, IKEA McCoy is McCoy Masonry. So we do all types of masonry work.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay.
Mhm.
Thanks for being here.
Yes, we should see some more people coming on. I'm going to send out a reminder email here real quick. But so our first speaker is Miss Melanie Bryant from the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation. And Miss Melanie, if you would just do a brief introduction of yourself, and then feel free to start your presentation. So thank you for being here with us today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Melanie Bryant, and I'm the Minority and Small Business Advocate with the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. Today, I'm going to go through BWC requirements, who we are, why is it important to you, and then talk to you about some of our programs and grants that are available. Feel free to put any questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand. I think Lynn knows it's for me. I welcome anyone who raises their hand and wants to interrupt me and ask a question during the presentation. So I try to keep it pretty informal. So who are we? The Bureau was created in 1913. We are one of 4 monopolistic states in the country. And monopolistic basically means you have workers' compensation coverage with our agency, or you do not have workers' compensation coverage. So the 4 states listed on this slide, you must get workers' compensation coverage through the state agency, which is the BWC in Ohio. What most individuals in the state do not realize is that by law, your private health insurance cannot and will not pay for injuries that occur while you are working. Aflac, Travelers, Progressive, all the different types of insurances that we think about on a day-to-day basis by law are not permitted to pay for injuries that happen while you're working. So keep that in mind as we go through the presentation. So what is workers' comp? Now, workers' comp is not unlike most other insurances. We collect premiums from employers, and they remain in the state fund. And that fund is to pay for any injuries that occur and are approved by our agency. So we pay for missed wages, which is indemnity. We pay for medical expenses, doctor visits, prescriptions, surgeries, physical therapy, all of that is covered under the workers' compensation policy. Our system is no fault, and I say no fault. The best example that I can give is an employer who says, you know, Johnny just filed a workers' comp claim because he had a foreign body fall into his eye or get thrown into his eye. But I told him to wear his safety goggles and he wasn't wearing the safety goggles, so I want to deny the claim. Now, the employer has the ability, and it is within their rights to deny the claim. However, it does not necessarily mean that our agency will deny it. More than likely, his failure to wear his safety goggles does not mean his claim will not be allowed. The law basically looks to an employee and employer relationship as one in which that employee came to your location, 100% of who they were, and it's your responsibility to return them back home at 100%. So anything that occurs, him not wearing his safety goggles, ultimately is still your responsibility as an employer. And so in most cases, his claim would still be allowed. Additionally, we have no true tail on our claim. And when I say tail, in most types of insurances, say you have a sprain of the wrist, maybe that's 2 weeks of light duty work, for instance, a certain amount of treatment, and then the claim is cut off at that point in time. Our system is physician driven, so we don't necessarily think about or listen to what an injured worker believes they need or what type of treatment or how long they need to be off. And vice versa, we also do not listen to what the employer believes the treatment should be and how long that individual needs to remain off. It is physician driven. So in most cases, if a physician says this individual needs XYZ treatment and they need to be off for this specific amount of time, in most cases, that is how the claim is followed. We have a very significant claim that is over 30 years old in which the individual is a paraplegic. And so obviously they're still receiving checks from us every 2 weeks for missed wages, and we are still paying for their medical benefits. So within workers' compensation, a claim can go on for quite a bit of time. However, the majority of the claims that come into our system are medical only claims in which someone is injured, maybe needs to go to the urgent care, receive some basic first aid, and returns to work either that same day or the next day. So it's rare that we have these long lasting sorts of claims, but they do occur within our system. So who is required to be covered for workers' compensation? If you have one or more employees, you must have workers' compensation coverage. And I love my independent contractors and my general contractors and small businesses, but just because you call someone an independent contractor for workers' compensation purposes does not necessarily mean they are an independent contractor. Solely giving someone a 1099 does not make them an independent contractor for Ohio workers' compensation purposes. The law is still gray. However, we look at who controls that individual. So if you dictate their hours, you tell them when to come home, when to come to work, when to go home, you provide the materials, the equipment, the training. In general, for workers' compensation purposes, that is an employee and they must be covered. In having conversations with individuals about, well, is this an employee or is it an independent contractor? I always tell them, tell me why this person isn't an employee other than you just don't want them to be. And so you don't want them to be an employee because you don't want to pay for workers' comp, or you want to avoid the issues with taxes. If those are your only reasons for considering them an independent contractor for workers' comp, they're probably an employee. True independent contractors can decline work. So if I was an independent contractor, Lynn could have called me and said, hey, I'm doing this workshop on March 1st. Do you want to do it? And I could have said yes or no. I could have told Lynn maybe next month, maybe next year. That's what a true independent contractor is. But as an employee of the state of Ohio, doing presentations is a job of mine. And I did not have the ability, nor would I want to, Lynn, to decline this opportunity. So true independent contractors can say yes or no to work without ramifications. So who may want to consider having coverage? If it is just you and you do not have employees, you truly only have independent contractors and it's just you, you are not required to cover yourself. However, if you're a sole proprietor or partner, you can elect to have coverage for yourself. Although it's not required, the same still remains true when we talk about hurt and work. So if you are a consultant maybe who sits behind a laptop, and I think most of you are in the construction industry or transportation industry on this call, unless you're someone who just sits behind a laptop and directs work, you may want to consider getting workers' compensation coverage for yourself, because should you be injured, that injury is not going to be paid by anyone else by law in the state of Ohio. And it's really important to understand so many people have a full-time job in addition to the job that you guys may be representing yourselves on this call. And so if you're hurt with your new business or the part-time business that you're starting up, and it keeps you from working at your full-time job, obviously that's going to cause a tremendous amount of strain on your income and your household. If you have workers' compensation coverage and you're injured, then we not only replace the wages from this business that you owe, but also the employment wages that you are now not able to fulfill due to your work-related injury. So it is a protection for you as an individual to make sure, should you be injured, that this isn't something that not only brings down your business, but could potentially bring down your household. One of the things that I want to talk about before I move on why workers' comp is so important and compliance is so important is, should you fail to cover individuals and have workers' compensation coverage, if they are injured and they file a workers' compensation claim with us, and we deem that they were an employee, we will cover their workers' compensation claim. However, what that means for you is everything that we pay out, so the missed wages, all the medical bills, we will send you a bill for everything that we pay out because you did not cover them. And so anyone who's seen recent medical bills for simple things, just going for an annual checkup, you know what those expenses look like. And for most small businesses, that isn't an expense that they can afford. Our agency is represented by the Attorney General's office. So unpaid bills to our agency mean unpaid bills to the AG's office. And that's nothing any of us want to find ourselves in. So keep that in mind when you're talking about having workers' compensation coverage. One, it's the law to have it if you have employees. But two, it really could be extremely detrimental for you as a business owner if you do not have it. So I've already talked about why comply. I know many of you probably see in the newspaper about workers' comp fraud, and it typically talks about injured workers who are getting missed wages from our agency, but they're caught working someplace else in addition to that. So double dipping, if you will, within the system. But our special investigations unit also investigates employers. We see grand opening signs and postings online about new businesses, and they do investigate to determine whether that business has workers' comp coverage. And if they don't, you will be contacted by that organization, or by that unit, I should say, within our organization, to make sure you get in compliance with the law and have that. So just do the right thing. Workers' compensation premiums are not something that are going to break your back. I've been doing this for about 30 years. And in my 30 years, I've yet to have an employer come to me and say, you know, I can't afford workers' compensation coverage. That in general is not the case. You can pay monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. So pretty simple to get workers' comp coverage. And next, I'm going to be talking about some programs that will further reduce your workers' compensation premiums. So Grow Ohio, I'll quickly go through this because I'm assuming the majority of you have workers' compensation. This program is for any employer who does not have coverage yet. Once you apply for a new workers' compensation policy, you are eligible to be in our Grow Ohio program. For the first 2 years of having workers' compensation coverage, you get two options under Grow Ohio. So a 53% discount or a 25% discount. And most of you are thinking, well, why wouldn't I take the 53% discount? The 53% discount requires you to enroll in a group rating program with a third-party administrator. And third-party administrators basically serve as an employer's workers' comp representative. So there is a fee associated with enrolling into a group rating program. In essence, you pay them to represent you, so they would attend your hearings, file motions on your behalf when it comes to claims, make recommendations when it comes to claims. And once they enroll you into the group rating program, they submit to us the roster of those employers participating, and we bill you at that reduced 53% discounted rate. The 25% discount does not require you to enroll with a third-party administrator. You only have to complete an online safety assessment, some basic questions about where you're at as a business owner in regards to safety. It's not a compliance sort of survey in which if you answer no, that you're not doing the 20 items that are asked on that survey, that we're going to send out safety enforcement to contact you. The purpose of the assessment is for you to assess where you're at and maybe start thinking about there's some more things I need to be doing safety-wise. So those are the two options under Grow Ohio for anyone who doesn't currently have a workers' comp policy. You have 30 days from the date that you open your policy to enroll into this program. And so make sure when you're enrolling that you don't miss out on that deadline. If you call me on the 31st date, there is nothing I can do to help you because everything that we do is written into law and into statute. So keep that in mind. So group rating is the program under Grow Ohio, but also current employers. So employers who currently have a workers' compensation policy can enroll into a group rating program. Any of you who continue to receive notifications, solicitations from third-party administrators, and you toss those out, if you're not currently in a group rating program, you probably should not be doing that. What they are asking for is for you to complete a temporary letter of authorization. It's a form you just need to sign and date. They will then analyze to determine whether you're eligible for group rating. And the discounts go up to 53% based on your individual performance. So I tell everybody, if you have no claims at all, you're guaranteed to be offered the 53% discount. But I would recommend you get evaluated for several different group rating programs. They're typically through chambers of commerces and trade associations. So they can send you quotes on how much they can save you in your workers' comp premiums and also let you know what their service fee is. And from that point, you can make a determination as to who you want to enroll with. But also keep in mind, because a lot of people think, well, I thought you said you're the only ones who provide workers' comp coverage. We are. They submit rosters to us. We bill you based on the group rate. So you're still paying us. We still make all the determinations. They just basically serve as your workers' comp representative. Like if an injured worker if an employee had an injury, they would hire an attorney to represent them. Your third-party administrator does the opposite for you. So let's talk about our safety intervention grants. These are our most popular grants. Basically, if you are doing some type of work manually, or you have some outdated equipment, and you know there is some new equipment that you could purchase that would make your workplace safer. So instead of doing a lot of lifting, you find a lift that you could purchase, you can apply for this grant. It is a 3-to-1 match. So for every dollar that you put in, we put $3 in, up to $40,000 a year. And as I said, it's the most popular grant, pretty straightforward application process online, and it's been streamlined. So employers are getting their money for this grant a lot quicker than in the previous years. So make sure if you've been holding off on buying equipment because of the price, this is a grant that can assist you in getting those things. Our safety services are probably our most underutilized services within our agency. And I think it's because most people confuse them with OSHA. So the last thing most employers want is someone sniffing around their business. They think, Obviously, at the end of this, I'm going to get a bill, I'm going to get a fine. Our safety services are paid for within your premium, so their consultation is totally free to you. They do not report out to OSHA. And so your meeting with them, their consultation, their walk through your facilities, is not something that gets reported out to OSHA. They're basically your eyes and ears before OSHA comes knocking, and they will. So they can do a walkthrough of your facility. They'll provide you with a report that says these are all the things that if OSHA were to come out, they would fine you for. And they can then provide you with a list of resources to help you remedy those situations. It is totally up to you if you take any of their advice or none of their advice. So please utilize all the safety services. There are a tremendous amount of videos that you can have access to. Additionally, we have a great librarian who, if you just email her and say, hey, I need some information on XYZ, she will do a lot of research and provide that information to you totally free. So make sure you take advantage of those services. Next, I want to talk about our drug-free safety program. The drug-free safety program basically says you need to have a policy that addresses the use of drugs and alcohol within your business. You have to have the requirements are that you have to have a safety review. Obviously, you have to do employee supervisor training and drug testing. You can receive a 4% rebate off of your premiums for being in our basic level. So new hire, post-accident, reasonable suspicion testing, if you have those within your policy, you can receive a 4% rebate. And keep in mind that is on top of the group rating discount that you can receive. If you agree to do all those same testing levels, and in addition include random testing, you can get a 7% rebate as well. And then I know we have the comparable for when you're wanting to do state contractor work. There is no rebate for that, but obviously that's something that we can do to certify you when you're looking at getting jobs or bids with the state. So next, I want to talk about our substance use and workplace recovery program. This is a relatively new program, but it is a no-brainer for anyone who has a drug policy. Basically, this program reimburses you for the total cost of your drug-free program. The only thing that must be included in your drug policy in order to receive these funds or this reimbursement is you must have second chance language in your policy. So basically, your policy must say we do not terminate after the first positive test. If that language is in your policy, then we will reimburse you for your drug testing. We'll reimburse you for policy development, so having someone actually write the policy for you. We'll reimburse you for employee and supervisor training. We'll reimburse you for the legal review of your policy, because we know with medical marijuana, those policies typically have to change frequently based on the new laws that are instituted. So if you have a drug-free policy and it gives second chance language, this program is a no-brainer for you because we will basically pay for your entire program. New and is something that we're definitely promoting to transportation businesses, construction businesses, because most of those businesses are required to have a drug policy. So these are funds that you can receive from us free of charge. For most of all of our programs and our grants, these are some basic things. You have to be in good standing with us. You can't have outstanding billings. You can't be lapsed in your coverage, but just basic good standing within our agency. Lastly, I want to talk about our Better You, Better Ohio program. This is a unique program within our agency because it is not employer-based or employer-focused. This is a wellness program for anyone in the state of Ohio who works for a small business And small is, we're pretty generous with it. It's anyone who works for a business with 250 or fewer employees. So anyone who works for a business, 250 or fewer employees, they can enroll into our wellness program. And for us as state of Ohio employees, we have a pretty robust wellness program. You do a biometric screening, which is like finger prick, and it tells you about your good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, sugar levels. You get weighed and they tell you what your BMI is. So it basically gives you a baseline of your health. And in this program, the employees receive a $75 MasterCard gift card for that. And then once they receive their results, it will give them suggestions of things that they can do to improve some of the numbers that may be not favorable on their results. If they agree to maybe monitor their steps or monitor how many vegetables they eat each week, they can receive additional incentives up to $225. So the employer does not enroll the individuals in this program. They don't know about their health numbers. We, as a state agency, do not. We use a third party called Active Health, who keeps all of that information. But it is, for me, we know a lot of individuals don't even go to a physician once a year, so they have no idea what their health is looking like. So not only do they receive the incentives from us, but they also get a baseline and are able to look at their health and determine whether they need to seek additional medical treatment. So great program. The only thing that we ask of employers is for them to promote this to their employees. And obviously the side effect or benefit for you as an employer is, we know healthy people get injured less. And when they get injured, they return to work quicker. So there is a potential for cost savings for you as the employer as well. Please make sure you have an e-account. I am still amazed by how many people call me and say, hey, can you tell me what my balance is? All I can think is, you didn't look online to see what your balance was. All of us have e-accounts or accounts, online accounts, with everyone who we do business with. So please make sure you have a BWC e-account. That way you have 24-hour access to your policy. You can look to see when your next payment is due. You can see what your balance is. You can check out all the programs and grants that I've discussed with you. So make sure you have an e-account. And I will close it out. And Lynn, if there are any questions in the chat.
I don't see. Oh, go ahead, Ms. McCoy. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question. Thanks.
I had a question about the review of your financial statements or books. When I first signed up, they said there was only maybe one or three companies that could do that. Is that, I have an e-account. Is that listed there? I couldn't find it.
What I'm not sure what you're referring to. Reviewing financials, we don't do that.
Okay, well, maybe I'm a little confused. Because they told me that they have to be, the word is escaping me. So that, like reviewing your payroll, so they know how many.
Oh, you're saying when you sign up for an e-account, we're asking you what individuals should have access or authorization?
No. Why is the word escaping me? I apologize. But audited. That your books have to be audited so that you are applying for the right amount of coverage, so they can see how
Yeah.
much. So
Yeah, that's not workers' comp.
That's
Yeah,
what
we
they
don't.
went through. Go ahead.
Yeah, we don't ask those things at all. So there's no such thing as an amount of coverage for agency at all. So that's why I know that's not us. When you apply for coverage, you're not applying for an amount of coverage. It's an unlimited coverage or policy. Everyone receives the same policy.
Right. I'm asking.
So maybe that's
question
some type of
that
liability insurance.
no, it was workers' comp, and it's on there. And I went to a few of the classes. I'm not asking for a certain amount of coverage. It's just that so that they see that you don't say that you only have 2 employees, and then so you pay a certain amount versus you really had 500 employees. and your payroll shows that.
The only thing that you need when you apply for coverage, we don't ask for number of employees. We only ask for payroll, total payroll. At the
Yes,
end
that's
of,
what I'm talking. Okay.
yeah, at the end of every year, we just ask you what your actual payroll was. We don't go through an audit process unless you're randomly selected to be audited. And all that they typically ask for are basic information like W-2s or 1099s.
Right, but I thought you had to present, not that you all do the auditing, I apologize with my question, but I thought you, with what you present to them, it had to be audited by,
No,
go ahead.
no, not at all.
No, okay.
Not at all. People use sometimes pieces of paper when the auditors actually come to them that are written. No, not at all.
Okay, thank you, because I was worried about that. I listened, we had a program, I won't take up any of your time, but okay, thank you.
Yeah, and it could be if you were involved in a training and someone was giving a total overview. A lot of people do not understand Ohio workers' compensation. So sometimes people will talk to you about 10 different types of insurances, and they sort of lump workers' comp in there. But no, we don't require audited financials at all.
Okay. What I attended was from the bureau, because I had just signed up. Like and they just sent me something else too. Well, let me ask you this, because I got a phone call about a month after I signed up, and they had looked at our website, okay, and it showed that we had some people doing the brickwork, we had some people doing cement. So she wanted to make sure that we signed up for um, the appropriate, like we gave what we do, that so that was appropriate, because she said there was a difference in cost. Now it turned out that what I signed up for was actually more, so it wasn't a big deal. So they do check that though to make sure.
Oh yeah, they
Correct.
definitely, when you apply for coverage, you tell them what you do as a business, and then they ask you what your payroll is. If you were, there are 600 different manual classifications. So if you were pretty vague about what you do, then they do have to research to find out what it is. But that's not auditing. That's just them making sure that they bill you at the appropriate manual classification or a description of work.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I just
Oh.
put masonry. So
Yeah, that was too general for them. Yeah.
okay.
Any other questions? All right. Well, you guys feel free to contact me anytime you have workers' comp questions. As I said, I've been doing this for 30 years, so generally I can answer your questions without bouncing you around to several different departments. But thank you.
And thank you, Melanie, very, very, very much. Okay, and feel free to stick around, or if you have to leave after some point, no problem. Um, we can give your contact information out if someone asks a question after you leave. So thank you once again. And Miss McCoy, if you want to put your hand down, that would be great if you're done with your questions. And let's see, our next speaker is it Mr. Kevin Keller? Yes. Okay. Introduction to bonding and a quick app / fast track. So, all right, Mr. Keller, you can, oh, you are sharing your screen, so feel free to take it away. If you want to do just a quick introduction, you can do that as well too. So thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kevin Keller. I am a senior vice president with the Fidelity Group in Independence. I'm a bonding agent. Been in the bonding business for just finished my 37th year. The first 20 of those years were with the bonding company as an underwriter, and the last 17 have been with an agent as an agent. Today, what I'd like to do is I've got a limited amount of time, so I'll be flying through this stuff fairly quickly. All of my slides will be made available to you if you need them, and you want to look at something that I either skipped over or went over really quickly. And I'm always available anytime if you want to give me a call and just talk about anything in particular. So without further ado, we'll get started and see if I can navigate the There we go. Navigate the presentation here. I wanted to start out by talking about why bonding is important. In fact, it may not ever be important to you, depending on the type of work that you do. If you're doing certain types of work, bonding is just not required. But if you're a contractor bidding public construction as a prime contractor, or you're a subcontractor, you may be required to provide bonding at some point. So let's assume that the bonding will be important to you. Why would it be important? Well, like I said, almost all public construction work in the United States, both federal, state, and local, is bonded. So if you are a prime contractor bidding work for a governmental entity, you will be required to provide bonding. If you are a subcontractor and you work for general contractors, you will at some point, as your contracts become larger and larger, perhaps be required to bond. But even if you don't, even if the general contractors you work for don't require you to bond, a lot of them require you to demonstrate that you are bondable as part of the process to pre-qualify you as a subcontractor. So it could be important to be pre-qualified and have a bonding capacity, even though you may not ever have to provide a bond. We are seeing over the last 30, 40 years, we've seen increasing amounts of requests for bonding for private construction. I know that HUD finance projects are bonded. A lot of banks, when they're lending money to developers for office buildings and things like that, will require the general contractor to be bonded. The bank wants to protect the money that they're loaning for the construction of the project, so banks will sometimes require bonding on the project. If you are a contractor and you do become bondable, or you get yourself set up with bonding capacity, it really it adds another revenue stream that might be available to you that you don't have otherwise. Without bonding, you're limited to working for private on private projects or as a subcontractor for generals who would never ask you for a bond. But if you become bonded, it really opens up other opportunities for you and gives you a more diverse revenue stream. The last item I really want to say, I stole this from Joanne Brooks, my good friend, is that bonding equals empowerment and opportunity for you. If you are trying to pre-qualify with a general contractor and you're competing against other contractors for work, if you're bondable, you might have the edge. So, extra opportunities and being bonded and bondable is empowerment for you and your company. That's why bonding is important. No one item makes it important by itself, but these things all will factor into it. So I wanted to start and briefly talk about what is bonding, what is surety. The word surety and bonding are kind of used interchangeably, but the concept of surety is surety is a three-party agreement whereby one party, the bonding company, the surety, becomes obligated to another party, who we'll call the obligee, to perform the obligations of the third party, which is you, the principal, in the event that you fail to fulfill your obligations. So let's say you've gotten a contract to build something, and you're required to provide a performance bond for that project. If you do not do what you're supposed to do, complete the project, pay the bills of subcontractors and suppliers, and the surety has to come in. The surety has said, by issuing their bond, we will come in and clean up the mess. So the surety is a secondary guarantor of obligations that you might make. They're not the primary. You are the primary with the obligation. They're secondary to that. But if you don't live up to your obligations, they're obligated to do that for you. References to surety go all the way back to the New Testament. In Proverbs, it states that he that is surety for a stranger shall smart for it, and he that hateth suretyship is sure. I'm not even sure what that really means, but here's how I interpret it. I don't think this is really saying don't ever become surety. Don't ever guarantee the obligations of another party. The thing that I pull out of this is don't do that for a stranger. Make sure that when you guarantee the obligations of others, that you know who you're doing it for, and that you know that they have the ability and the character to complete the obligation. So that's how I kind of read that proverb passage. Corporate sureties date all the way back to the late 1800s, early 1900s. But prior to corporate sureties, which are typically insurance companies, most surety obligations were guaranteed by individuals. So an individual might guarantee that another individual is going to perform some obligation. In the early 1900s, insurance companies began to guarantee obligations as sureties, and so since then, that's the vast majority of bonds have been written by insurance companies or corporate surety companies. In 1935, the federal government passed the Miller Act. The Miller Act established bond requirements on federal government projects, and the Miller Act requires most prime contractors, I think it's above, today it might be 250,000. At one point it was 100,000, to post bonds on federal projects if you are the prime contractor. The performance bond and also a payment bond. These bonds protect not only the owner, but they protect first and second tier subcontractors and suppliers on the job. And then most states, after the Miller Act was passed, most states passed similar types of laws requiring bonds for state projects, and they call those Little Miller Acts. Those Little Miller Acts define the bond requirements for various states, and they're essentially fairly much the same from state to state, but there can be some differences as to the size of contract that requires bonding or some other factors, but typically they're fairly consistent from state to state. A lot of times people will confuse insurance and bonding, or insurance and surety. They are different things. They're different animals. Even though insurance companies write performance and payment bonds, a performance and payment bond is really not insurance. And I just want to point out a few of the differences between an insurance policy and a surety bond. The first difference I want to point out is actually down in the middle of this list. That a surety bond is remember I said it was a three-party agreement between the surety, the principal, and the obligee. Insurance is a two-party agreement, an agreement between you, the insured, and the insurance company. So you have only two parties to an insurance policy, and you have three parties on a surety bond. The most important thing to remember about a surety bond is it's protection and insurance, but not for you. You're going to buy the bond. You're going to include the cost of the bond in your bid when you're a contractor bidding projects, but the protection actually is provided to third parties to whom you become obligated. And if you fail to live up to your obligations according to the contract, and the bonding company has to come in and complete your obligations, they're going to turn around and look to you to repay them. And that's another very important difference between surety and insurance. If your house burns down, the insurance company is going to pay for the covered loss, but they're certainly not going to ask you to reimburse them for that loss because you've purchased insurance. If you are a contractor and you are bonded and you cause a loss under that contract, the surety is going to take care of that loss and make parties whole, but they're going to look for you to repay them. So it's really more like credit or like bank credit than it is like insurance. Insurance policies and insurance protection, when the insurance companies try to determine how much they're going to charge for their insurance, they go through a process which is what they call an actuarial process. The insurance companies know, based on the law of large numbers, that there are going to be so many automobile accidents every year. There are going to be so many fires, and they're able to, using the law of large numbers, they're able to determine how much to charge for each coverage of insurance based upon the likelihood that a loss is going to occur. So when an insurance company puts together the premium for insurance, there's a loss factor in there. There's a factor for the insurance company's expenses, both in the underwriting side and on the claims side, and they arrive at a rate that they would charge for that insurance. Bonding is a little bit different. Bonding and surety companies assume that there's going to be no loss on the bond. Theoretically, and unfortunately it doesn't always happen in practice, but theoretically, when you write that bond, you have done your due diligence as an underwriter and determined that you have a contractor that is capable and that will complete the project and the obligations without you having to step in. So the bonding company assumes that there won't be a loss on the bond. So the premium that they charge for that bond is really not like an insurance policy where there's a loss factor in there, because they're assuming no loss. So the premium charged by the surety is more or less a fee for pre-qualification and for settling claims. Now, in reality, sureties do have losses. Projects do go bad, contractors do go broke, and the surety does have to pay losses. But the premiums and the rates charged are not really calculated assuming a loss. Let's see if we got everything here. Yep. And again, at the last item here, pre-qualification is very important. It's the key to the whole process. Not every qualifier, every contractor is going to qualify for bonding, and that's the frustrating thing. I know for you, small emerging contractors, once you understand that it's not insurance, it's more like going to the bank and getting a loan in a lot of ways. You understand more why your credit and your financial condition really determines whether you're bondable or not. Okay, moving on. I want to talk real quick about some of the types of surety bonds out there that you're going to run into. We break we break surety bonds down into two major categories: commercial surety and contract surety. The commercial surety bonds that you will likely run into will be probably the most frequent will be the wage and welfare bond. Well, actually, the most frequent will be the license and permit bonds, but wage and welfare bonds are typically required by unions. If you are signatory to a union, the union may or will likely require you to provide a bond that guarantees that you're going to pay your union scale wages and make contributions to the workers' benefit funds. So the union doesn't want to have that risk, so they will require a third-party guarantee in the form of a surety bond to guarantee that you're going to do that. A second type of bond you may run into would be a court bonds. If you are sued and you lose a judgment in court and you like to appeal it with the appeals court, you may be required, or you're likely required, to post a bond guaranteeing that if you lose your appeal, that you're going to pay the original judgment plus the court costs for the appeals process. If a lien is placed upon the project by one of your subs or suppliers, your contract may require you to have that lien removed from the property or from the funds of the project, and you may be required to post a release of mechanics lien bond. That's another type of court bond. So those are the most frequent court bonds that we run into in the surety business. And those are the types that you could possibly be faced with having to provide going forward. The last category of commercial is the license and permit bond. Those are the easiest to get, typically do not require any kind of underwriting or financial statements or credit reports or anything like that. The bonds are small. The bonds really just are written typically to the city, possibly to the county or village, township, as you license with that particular governmental entity. The government may require a license bond from you, and that bond simply guarantees that you're going to do the work that you do in that municipality or wherever it is, according to the codes, and that your work that'll be good according to code. And if your work is not according to code and has to be repaired, that you will fix it. And if you don't, the bonding company, up to the penalty of the bond, will be required to come in and correct the work. Those bonds are very easily written. We get online. We typically get an email from a customer. We go right online, execute the bond. Many of these license and permit bonds can be issued and emailed right to you. So it's not unusual that if you need a license bond for a particular city, if you email it to us, we'll be able to turn that around within 15 minutes and you'll have the bond sitting in your inbox in your email. Some of the bonds do still require what we call a wet signature, an actual original signature. Those have to be mailed out. But in general, those are pretty easy bonds to get. So that's pretty much the commercial surety bonds that you're likely to run into. The last class, and the ones that everyone wants to talk about, are the contract surety bonds. And I'm going to go through I've broken that contract surety bonds down into four different categories. Now the contract surety bonds, they cover a specific contract. They're not necessarily limited by time, whereas a license and permit bond will run, say, from January 1st until December 31st of the year, and it covers your activities throughout that that period. The wage and welfare bond is in force perpetually until it's canceled, and it covers your payment of wages and fringe benefits. So they're not related to any specific contract. But contract surety bonds are tied specifically to performance of a contract. I want to talk a little bit about each subcategory of contract surety bonds. The first one is the bid bond. A bid bond is a bond that is provided to the owner of a project at the time that the project is bid. So if I'm going to bid, I'm going to use $100,000 throughout the presentation, $100,000 bid as an example. The bid bond would be, let's say I'm going to bid a job and it's going to be $100,000. The bid bond that I provide will typically be written for a percentage of the amount of my bid. That percentage can be anywhere from Stark County, Ohio uses a 3% bid bond. Many cities, including Cleveland, Akron, Canton, I think, I'm not sure about Canton, use a 5% bid bond. Some cities use 10%, and the federal government uses 20%. And what that means is when you turn in your $100,000 bid, if you are required to provide a 20% bid bond with your bid, that means there's $20,000 available in the penalty of that bond for the owner to use in the event that you are the low bidder. They would like to award you a contract and you either refuse to enter into the contract, or you refuse to provide performance and payment bonds, or you can't provide performance and payment bonds once you're awarded the contract. So the bond really is a method. It serves two purposes. It demonstrates that the contractor has been pre-qualified by a corporate surety company, assuming the fact that the corporate surety would do something before they would give you a bid bond, run your credit, check your financials, whatever it may be. So it helps keep frivolous or irresponsible bidders out of the bidding pool. And the second purpose the bond has is to provide a little bit of money to the owner in the event that they either have to rebid the project because the low bidder doesn't enter into a contract or can't provide bonds, or maybe the low bidder bid a ridiculously low price and they need to withdraw their bid, and the owner wants to go to to award the contract to the second bidder. The owner may file a claim for their costs in having to move to the second bidder or rebid the project, and those funds would come from the bid bond if you, the principal, either refused or were unable to pay that penalty yourself. So that's the purpose of the bid bond, and that bond is presented along with your package, your bid package. Now, once you've been awarded the contract, you will, in many cases, especially with public work, you will be required to provide a performance bond. The performance bond is written in most cases in the full amount of the contract. So if I bid $100,000 for my contract and I'm awarded a $100,000 contract, in most cases, I'm going to be required to provide a $100,000 performance bond. Now, the performance bond guarantees and it protects the owner of the project. So if that $100,000 bid that I turned in was to the Cleveland School District, my performance bond guarantees that I'm going to deliver a completed $100,000 project to the Cleveland schools, and it's for their protection, and it guarantees that I do the project. The performance bond, basically, the benefit inures to the obligee or the owner of the project. The payment bond, which is the next bond, is issued at the same time as the performance bond, and it's typically written in the same amount as the performance bond, 100% of the contract. So in our case here, we would issue a performance bond in the amount of $100,000, and we would issue a payment bond, a separate instrument, which is called a payment bond, for $100,000. Now, the payment bond provides a guarantee that the subcontractors, laborers, and material suppliers associated with the project are going to be paid. So the payment bond is for the protection of sub-suppliers and laborers. And while there's an indirect benefit to the owner of the project, the payment bond really is there for the people providing subs and laborers and material suppliers. Now, the payment bond doesn't cost more. The cost of the payment bond is included in the cost of the performance bond. So we would typically, in our example situation, we would be issuing a $100,000 performance bond and separately a $100,000 payment bond. Each bond directly benefiting a different, the different entities. The performance bond directly benefiting the owner, the payment bond directly benefiting sub-suppliers and laborers. So we've got the project, we've been awarded the contract, we've provided the owner with our performance and payment bonds. Now we go do the job, we successfully complete the job. We've paid all of our sub-suppliers and laborers, so we have no obligation there. We're all done with the project. It's very possible at the very end, we may have to provide a maintenance bond. And that's essentially just a warranty guarantee to the owner that for a period of time after acceptance of the project, that you will come back and take care of any deficiencies in workmanship on the project. The maintenance guarantee usually is 1 year after completion of the project. However, they can be longer. They can be 2 years, 3 years. The city of Fairlawn has a 3-year maintenance obligation. City of Independence is 3 years on concrete. So it can be 1 year. It can be as many as 3, and I've seen 5. And there was a time when ODOT required 10-year maintenance guarantee on new roads. I don't think they do that anymore, but there was a time years ago that was the case. The maintenance bond, and most the surety provides 1 year of warranty or maintenance coverage when they issue a performance and payment bond. So that's already included, but many times an owner will want a separate maintenance bond, even though it might be only 1 year and it's already covered by the performance and payment bond. They might want a separate instrument. So we're happy to provide that. We do not charge anything extra if the period of maintenance or warranty is only 1 year. But if it exceeds that, then there is a surcharge involved in that. So we've got a bid bond, a performance bond, a payment bond, and potentially a maintenance bond on a contract. So now I'd like to move on to the underwriting process. Okay. So what is the bonding company looking for when they're evaluating you, the principal, as a potential client? Well, they're looking for what we call the 3 C's. They're looking for good character, good capital, and the capacity to do the project. I want to just talk really quickly about each item. A lot of it's self-explanatory. You know what good character is. You have friends, relatives, and others, and there's some that you believe have higher character than others, and it can be a very intangible thing that's hard to define. But underwriters try to find a way to evaluate their principals, and how they do that nowadays actually is a little different than back in the earlier days when I before Google and internet and things like that. We actually called up prior owners and subs and suppliers and people that companies did business with, call them up on the phone and ask them are they a good customer? Do they complete their work? Do they are they fair to deal with, and things like that? Is their work high quality? We would do a lot of that. We do it either by phone or we do it sending out by mail reference letters. And nowadays we don't see as much of that anymore. But now that it's easy to get credit information, there's credit reporting agencies out there. There's Google, where you can get a ton of information. It's very easy to jump on the Cuyahoga County Clerk of Court's website and see if somebody's involved in suits and liens and things like that. So it's a little easier to do the work yourself nowadays. But you're looking for somebody that pays their bills, that deals fairly with people, that isn't in court all the time. And when they do have a dispute, they resolve it in an amicable, have a history of doing that. And if you have all that, you've got someone that probably has pretty decent character. Now, I can tell you this, in 37 years, I've seen not a lot, but a few situations where somebody had great character until it hit the fan and they had problems. Then all of a sudden they have no character. They're running for the hills, they're hiding everything. So character is really, that's the problem with trying to evaluate it. You really don't get to see it until it's probably too late when you need to see it. But that's character, and that's one of the 3 C's. Number 2 is the capital side. How much money you got? I mean, that's kind of, it's pure and simple. Do you have equity in your company? Do you have some liquidity, some cash, some working capital? Do you have too much debt, or is your debt reasonable? Do you have a way to provide additional funds through a line of credit or other cash reserves, even personally, to provide capital to your company? Those are the things that really the surety is looking for when they are evaluating capital. And the surety will do ratios and things like that. But essentially, they're looking to make sure that you're liquid and you've got enough cash and cash available to you to cash flow and complete the work that you're going to bond. Capacity. What is capacity? Well, do you know how to do the work? If you're a concrete contractor, I mean, are you good at it? How big a concrete job have you done? What kind of technical skills do you and your people have? How deep is your company? How much management do you have? I know a lot of you sitting here today could be, you're one person in your company. You don't have a lot of depth. It's you. If something happens to you, no more company. And that's the case, and that's not unusual. So considering that, it's not likely that a bonding company is going to write a really big bond for a one-person company, because if something happens to that one person, there's a real problem there. But so the bonding company is really looking at, the larger you get, the higher, the bigger the bonds you need. They're looking for things that show that you have depth in your company. You've got staying power. You've got employees. You don't have a lot of turnover in your company, and that you're experienced and qualified to do the type of projects and the size projects that you want to do. So how do they, well, then the process becomes, where do we start? I got these kind of out of order, but there's your underwriter burning the midnight oil, trying to check out all these different underwriting things. So first thing you need to do, I think, is find a knowledgeable surety bond agent. To deal with surety bonds in the state of Ohio and all other states, you have to have a property and casualty insurance license. Well, in Ohio, I think I wrote this presentation 10 years ago. It could be more now, but there were 85,000 insurance agents in Ohio, just in Ohio. And out of those 85,000 agents, probably less than 25 of them in Ohio are really qualified to do your bonding. Bonding is a very specialized niche. Construction is a very specialized niche. Your insurance agent, if he or she is really smart, will not try to handle your bonding once you get beyond, a very small size, for the same reason that you don't want me to handle your insurance. Could I put your insurance package together if you're a really small contractor? Yeah, I probably could. I'm a licensed property and casualty agent. But to be honest with you, you don't want me handling your insurance. You want somebody who deals in that every day. Same thing for bonding. The next step is to find a good CPA. For the same reasons that you want to find a bonding agent who is skilled and specializes, you want your CPA to specialize in construction as well. Construction, again, is a very specialized niche. The same thing with accounting. An accountant that might be really good with manufacturers or retailers isn't necessarily very good with contractors. You're going to save yourself a lot of time and ultimately money working with a CPA that specializes in contractors. Next, you want to find a bank. You want to talk to banks. You want to interview the banks. You want to find out, do they handle contractors? Again, a lot of bankers don't understand construction, and they're very difficult. They can be very difficult to deal with if you're a contractor if they don't understand construction. So you want to make sure your banker works with other contractors. The best way to find that out is talk to your friends. Talk to your friends that are contractors. Find out who they do business with. If they like their bank, who's their bank? Do they seem to understand their business? So right now we're talking about we need a good bond agent. We need a CPA, and now we need a banker too. So let me add a couple to that. You need a good construction attorney. If you get a dispute, get into a dispute with somebody, you want to make sure that your attorney isn't doing wills and trusts all day, and then all of a sudden he's going to work on your construction dispute in the afternoon. You want a construction experienced attorney. They're, again, probably the same percentage of attorneys understand construction as insurance agents understand surety. You want somebody that's experienced. So now we've got, what, 4 professionals that are very important to your business. You want an insurance agent. I'll add insurance agent to that list. Your 5 professional service providers, your insurance agent, your bonding agent, your banker, your CPA, and your attorney, those are very important to you. They are your unofficial board of directors. They are where you go whenever you're going to do anything major, to talk to those folks to find out what effect your actions are going to have on the things they do for you. And then once you have the information from your professional service providers or your unofficial board of directors, then you go and make the best business decision that you can make for your company. Once we have all this paperwork, and there's a lot of paperwork involved, there's we'll be gathering your financial statements. We'll be getting accounts receivable information, perhaps your tax returns. If you have affiliated companies, we'll be getting tax returns or financials from those companies, your personal financials, your bank documents and things like that. We have all that information. Then we're ready to go to the surety company and get you some bonding capacity. I guess I added a couple items here, resumes and a business plan and those kind of things. So as you get bigger, as you'll see, I talk about this a little bit later here. You can get a certain amount of bonding without having to provide all this information. There are companies that will provide you bonding based on your credit. If you have good credit, they'll write a limited amount of bonding for you. But as you get bigger and your bonding needs become bigger and more frequent, you'll have to start providing financial statements and things like that. And you may then become of a size where you're going to meet with your bonding company underwriter on a periodic basis to talk about how your business is doing, what your plans are upcoming, things like that. But that happens as you become bigger. So once you've gotten a bonding company who wants to write your bonds, they're gonna send you an indemnity agreement to sign. That agreement is essentially it sets out the rights and duties of both the surety and the indemnitors, and it establishes the obligation of the indemnitors to make the surety whole for any claims paid on your behalf. So the agreement essentially says, in a lot of words and a lot of pages, if you cause us a loss, you got to pay us back. And there's a lot of clauses in there that say what your responsibilities are and what the surety's responsibilities are as well. But the indemnity agreement will likely be signed by you, the owner of the company, and your spouse, and any other owners and spouses in the company. You will very likely have to sign personally for your bonding for quite a long time until you become a large contractor and you're able to negotiate that away. And you can negotiate that obligation away, but not while you're a small contractor. So if you have a issue with putting your personal assets on the line, bonding might not be the best place for you. However, I will say bonding companies are not coming after your house. They're not able to get to your retirement accounts. So they can't, they're not going to take your firstborn child, but be prepared to sign personally. And the biggest factor in signing personally for the surety is if something happens and they have to step in and take care of your obligations, knowing that they have your personal signature will help assure that you're going to cooperate with them, provide them books and records, and access to the job and those kind of things so that they can come in and make things right. So we signed the indemnity agreement. We're all ready to go. What do? Well, we apply for a bond. This happens to be our bonding bond request form worksheet. As you can see, it basically just collects the information about the particular project, and you send it to us. We review it. If it's within the parameters of your bonding capacity and what the surety is willing to do for you, then we issue the bond. Hopefully, you're going to give us 5 working days. That's kind of a good, rule of thumb. Can we do it like if you send me a request at 4 o'clock today? Could I have the bond ready for you in the morning? Many times, yes, but I wouldn't count on it because you just never know what comes up. So, provide time to us or your bonding agent. You'll be happy that you did that. All right. So, what's it cost for bonding? Generally, there isn't a charge for bid bonds. You could bid 10 jobs or more before you get your first job. So, you could have, if we were charging you for every bid bond, you might be losing money before you even get the job. So we don't charge for bid bonds. Performance and payment bonds. Typically, the price you're going to pay for performance and premium or payment bonds will be somewhere between 0.5% to 3%, perhaps a little more of the contract price for the project. If you're a new contractor, a small contractor, you're going to be closer to that 3% price. If you're larger, more financially strong and so forth, your rates will be lower. As I said earlier, the payment bond is included in the price for the performance bond. So there's not an extra charge for the payment bond. The maintenance bond, the first year of maintenance is included with the performance and payment bond. Usually it's about 0.25% per year on the amount of the bond for each successive or additional year of warranty. There are a number of bonding markets out there, ranging from what we call quick issue credit-based bonding programs. Most major surety companies have a credit-based program where they will where they're willing to provide bonding up to a limited amount, maybe 500,000, maybe 750,000, without you having to provide a financial statement. They'll run your credit. If your credit's good, they'll give you a certain amount of bonding capacity. Those programs typically charge at 3%. They're on that 3% part of the rate. But they can be really good for the small company who's just getting established but has good credit. You can get your, bid a few jobs, do a few jobs, get familiar with the bonding process. As you get bigger and once you get your accounting system put together and you've got some equity in your company, and then you can move to the next level. The next type of market, I don't spend a lot of time on this because frankly, I don't use these markets. There are some bonding companies that will take collateral from you, like you provide them with a irrevocable letter of credit that provides a security to them to issue the bond. Or there are some companies that will require you to go through an escrow process with all the money on the project in order to write that bond. So the money gets distributed from the owner to the escrow agent. You have to provide documents to the escrow agent showing who you're going to pay. Then they will issue dual party checks to you so that you can pay your subs and suppliers and payroll and so forth. I've done a few of those types of things, but frankly, I haven't needed those markets for a long time. I just don't use them anymore. The third market, or the third area, I won't spend much time on this because Tamara, following me, is going to tell you everything you need to know about SBA bonding. But the U.S. Small Business Administration has a surety bond guarantee program that is really outstanding. They provide a guarantee to the bonding company of 80% and sometimes up to 90%. That basically says if the bonding company has a loss on a bond they write for you, that is guaranteed by the SBA will reimburse the bonding company for that loss. That allows the bonding company to lower the bar a little bit and write bonds for you or someone else who they might not do it for otherwise, but having that SBA guarantee gives them the comfort that that their risk is less, or if the deal goes bad, their loss is going to be small. It's an outstanding program. It's been very critical to our growth. And then after that are just everybody else, all the standard markets, and there's many of those available. We got about 5 minutes. Is that about right? All right.
Yeah, more like 3. Sorry.
30 seconds.
3 minutes.
Okay. Let's, I'm not going to go over this. I'd like you to, on your own, maybe look at the things that happen during a bond default. There's a quick bond or a credit-based bond application in here for you to look at. There's the indemnity agreement. It's a 2-page, sorry. And there's my bio. That pretty much wraps up my presentation. And if you have questions, I'll take them now, or please feel free to call me. If you want to call me on my cell, my office phone rolls to my cell anyway. That's my contact information. I'm happy to talk to you about any of this in more detail or provide you with any kind of information that you need. I appreciate your time and your attention, and I'll take any questions at this point if you have any.
See any in the chat? Okay. Think of a question, add it to the chat if you like, or here's his contact information to follow up with them. Thank you so much, Mr. Keller. Very, very, very great, comprehensive presentation. Appreciate all that valuable information. Next, we'll move on to Ms. Tamara Murray with the Small Business Administration. And Ms. Tamara, if you could just do a brief self-introduction, that would be great before your presentation. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Lynette. It's a pleasure to be here today. I appreciate the opportunity. And yeah, it's always a pleasure to follow Kevin. He had lots of good information for you. Hopefully, I've got a lot more. I am an underwriting marketing specialist with SBA's Surety Bond Guarantee Program. And I've been a surety professional for over 30 years. I know Kevin's got a little bit of a lead on me, but you know, that kind of tells you how long we've been around. We're aging here just a little bit. I've been helping small businesses obtain the contract bonds that they need here at SBA since 2007. So I'm going to go off video so that I can play a little narrated video for you and run through this presentation about what we do here at SBA and get you out of here. So the first thing that I want to do is just kind of play a brief video overview of the SBG program for you. This is just going to kind of hit the highlights so you get an idea of what I'm about to talk to you about, but I am going to give you all of the details, so not to worry.
Small businesses are a critical part of the U.S. economy, and through the SBA's Surety Bond Guarantee Program, we help small businesses at various stages. Emerging businesses that need contract surety bonds but may be new to bonding, as well as established businesses looking to increase their current bonding limits and capacity. For over 50 years, SBA's Surety Bond Guarantee Program has been a trusted program creating access, opportunity, and stability for thousands of small businesses needing surety bonds, as in more than $7 billion a year in contract bonds. If you own a small business in construction or service industry and require a contract surety bond, with SBA guaranteed bonds, your working capital requirements are lower and your bond capacity is increased. The result? You compete for larger contracts or build your business as a prime contractor. Who benefits when small businesses get access to surety bonds? We all do. With access to bonds and increased bonding limits, small businesses grow, and that growth has ripple effects, such as hiring employees from local communities and contributing to the national economy. Convenience, not hassle. The program has low barriers to entry. It's easy to use. The entire process is electronic, and you receive fast decisions within hours for smaller contracts and less than 2 days for large dollar contracts. Sound like a program for you? Reach out to your local SBA district office to learn more, or take the first step to apply for the program by connecting with a surety agent authorized to issue SBA guaranteed bonds. Find a surety partner at sba.gov/OSG. Because at SBA, we make small business our business.
Now, we've been opening doors to bonding for small businesses since 1970, over 50 years of doing this here at SBA, but often small businesses don't know that we exist. So I'm glad that Kevin gave you just a quick introduction. All 4 of those contract bonds that Kevin mentioned, the bid, performance, payment, and maintenance bonds, we can guarantee each of those bonds for your small business here at SBA. We can guarantee these bonds on all types of contracts and subcontracts, up to $6.5 million in project size. And we can go up to $10 million in project size on a direct prime contract, federal, that is awarded to your small business. So, oftentimes small businesses think that because SBA is a federal agency and this is a federal program, that we can only help with federal projects. And that's completely untrue. Even your private contracts, your subcontracts with GCs, those all fall into that $6.5 million category. So we can guarantee any of your bonded projects up to $6.5 million. And, Kevin talked to you a little bit about, the qualifications for bonding, and there's a lot of challenges there. It can be challenging, the financial statements, the capital, the character, just everything that goes into qualifying for bonding can be a little bit challenging if you're a small business who's new. How do you show your surety company that you can successfully complete a contract when you've never completed one? Or if you have inadequate working capital, that's one of those primary C's, those 3 C's that Kevin talked about, or if the owner's credit isn't up to the surety company's standards. That's where SBA's Surety Bond Guarantee Program can help. SBA helps level the playing field for small businesses by guaranteeing 80 or 90% of each bond based on the demographics of your business. So SBA's guarantee to your surety company means that your surety is only risking 10 or 20% of the bond's value, that contract value, instead of the full 100%, because they have SBA's guarantee to rely on if there is a contract default. It's that guarantee from SBA that makes our surety partners willing to help small businesses obtain the bonding capacity that they need to grow. So the guarantee actually goes to your surety company, and you're probably wondering, does that create any sort of an advantage for me? Specifically, how does that help? Well, there's a couple of really big advantages to having SBA bond guarantees on all of your bonded projects. And the first one relates to that capital that Kevin mentioned. When you have SBA bond guarantees on your bonded projects, that can help you obtain up to twice as much bonding capacity from a surety without any additional working capital, right? So our working capital requirements are lower. Our surety partners reduce their working capital requirements because they have that 80 or 90% guarantee from SBA. And so what that typically means is with the same amount of working capital, SBA guarantees, you can get up to twice as much bonding capacity as you could without our support. Then there's another unique asset to having our guarantee that can increase your bonding capacity, and that is a working capital bank line of credit. When you have a working capital bank line of credit that you can draw on when you need cash flow, and you have some availability on that line, you have an unused portion, we and our surety partners count that as actual working capital. And that does not happen in the standard surety market. Standard sureties are happy to see that you have a working capital bank line that you can draw on when you need cash for your day-to-day operations, but they're not going to use it for anything. They like to see it. That's great. helps support your business. But with SBA's bond guarantee program, those sureties will include the unused portion of that bank line as actual working capital that's available to you. And that's going to take your bonding capacity to the next level. For example, if you have a $50,000 bank line of credit with $25,000 available for use, that's an additional $25,000 in capital that gets added to the capital from your financial statements. And more capital means more bonding capacity. These advantages are only available to small businesses in SBA's Surety Bond Guarantee Program. So many small businesses, I'm going to play a short success story for you here in just a few minutes. Many small businesses double their bonding capacity as soon as they begin receiving SBA bond guarantees. As soon as they become eligible for our program, their bonding capacity can double. Now there's another hurdle, and Kevin talked about this a little bit. CPA prepared financial statements are oftentimes required for bonding, especially on larger projects. And SBA can help you kind of clear that hurdle as well. We can guarantee bonds for larger projects, even if you don't have those CPA prepared financial statements that surety companies typically require. SBA will accept internally prepared business financial statements for many contracts up to $2 million, with the requirement for CPA prepared financials kicking in for larger contracts. So that can give your business the opportunity to secure that larger bonded project, and then the opportunity to find a construction CPA and have your financial statements upgraded. Now, you're probably wondering how long it will take to get an SBA bond guarantee. I know sometimes the federal government has a bad reputation of taking forever to do anything. Well, that's not the case with our program. Our partners use our electronic application process to help you obtain your bond guarantee as quickly as possible. We offer a streamlined, quick application. That's one of those credit-based programs that Kevin mentioned that requires less paperwork. So all those financial statements, all of that information goes away. It's purely credit-based with most of our surety partners. And bond guarantees under the Quick app, we can typically approve in about a day. It is designed for small, simple projects up to $500,000 in size. Now, we can accommodate bond guarantees outside of our Quick app, again, up to $6.5 or even $10 million. And we typically approve those applications in just 2 days. So we're not adding a whole lot of time onto your bond application process. Now, to qualify for the Surety Bond Guarantee Program, your business must be small by SBA's definition, be a U.S.-based for-profit business with legal resident owners. Your business and all owners must also possess good character, be current on public debts and taxes, be eligible to do business with the federal government, so not be debarred by any federal agency, and not be involved in a current bankruptcy proceeding. Lastly, you'll need to pass that 3 C's underwriting process that Kevin mentioned a little bit ago, and need a contract bond that you're unable to obtain elsewhere with reasonable terms. Now, that qualification, reasonable terms, is nice and broad, and we love it that way. You, as the small business owner, get to decide what that means. If your surety is limiting your bonding capacity, if your surety is requiring collateral, if you are being declined by a surety for one reason or another, and you think that those terms are unreasonable, you have just met that self-certification of reasonable terms to help you qualify for an SBA bond guarantee. Now, Kevin mentioned the cost of bonding. You're still going to have to pay that premium to your surety, and that rate is going to vary. So you need to make sure that you know what that rate is. But there is also a cost for SBA's bond guarantee. Now, we don't charge a fee for bid bond guarantees, but once you're awarded a contract and need a performance or payment bond, you'll pay SBA a fee of 0.6% of the contract amount for our bond guarantee. Now, you want to be sure that you include your total bond cost on your bonded project so you're reimbursed by your project owner. So find out what your surety's premium rate is in each of the states where you work. Add SBA's 0.6% if you're using our program to get your total bond cost. I can tell you that the average total bond cost over the last decade for small businesses in the Surety Bond Guarantee Program is less than 2.5%. And that's really what allows our small businesses to remain competitive against other firms who are not using the SBG program and are not subject to that additional 0.6%. So you still can remain competitive against other firms who aren't subject to that fee. Now, you want to get started with SBA's bond guarantee, you need to choose an SBA authorized bond agent. But you have the advantage of having one here today. Kevin Keller his agency is always in our top 10, has been with us for many, many years, and is very adept at supporting small businesses using the SBG program. But you can also visit our website if you would prefer to do that at sba.gov/OSG. Kevin talked about how important a good professional bond agent is to have on your small business's team. And you can only apply for SBA's bond guarantee through an authorized bond agent and surety company. Not every bond agent has access to our program. So if you want to have access to our guarantee, you need to make sure that you're working with an SBA authorized bond agent like the Fidelity Group. All right. Before we wrap up, I can talk about how great our program is until I'm blue in the face, but I feel like it's much more impactful when you can hear from a small business directly from their own words about how the SBG program helped their small business grow. So this is one of my favorites. When Vera Hall came to SBA in 2019, her woman minority-owned small business was limited to bonding projects no larger than $250,000. So I'm going to let Vera tell you how SBA helped her in her own words.
We were bidding a security camera contract with a local college or university, may I say. And at the time, I was dealing with another surety, and I'm not going to name them. And so that surety said, what are you going to do? What is your estimate? And I said the estimate of that project is going to be about $650,000. Oh, that's too much. You need to stay in the 250. And so the insurance company that I was dealing with had already started reaching out to SBA. So I said to them, I need to bid on this project. It's a woman-on set aside. They have a DBE set aside, and I really need to bid on this because no one else is going to bid on it. And so they reached out to SBA that morning and asked them where were they on the process with my application, and they told them, oh well, yeah, we can bond that for her, the $650,000, and that's what happened that morning of the bid opening. I went in with an SBA surety bid bond to bid that project, and I was the only contractor to bid that project and was awarded that project as well. So it has been a blessing, and it has totally helped in my business to grow and to enhance where it needs to be. So that's one of my stories.
How's that for a success story? This small business went from only being able to bond a $250,000 project to getting a bid bond with SBA's guarantee on a $650,000 project. Fast forward from 2019 to now 2023, and this company is bonding projects over $3 million with SBA's guarantee. So that's just one example of how having SBA bond guarantees on all of your bonded projects can help your small business. Now, if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to reach out to me. I'm right at the end of my time. You're welcome to call me on the phone or send me an email. But as I mentioned, if you want to access our program, you need to do that through an SBA authorized bond agent and surety. And that's really step one. There's only one step, and that is it. Access either the Fidelity Group through Kevin Keller, who is an SBA authorized agent, or go to our website to choose an SBA authorized agent, and you will have access to our program. Thank you for your time today, Lynette. I will turn it back over to you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very, very, very much, Ms. Tamara, especially for being so flexible with your time and your presentation. Appreciate it. Our final speaker will be Mr. Jerome Jones. And Mr. Jerome, if you could just do a very quick introduction of yourself, that would be great before you start your presentation. And you
Sure.
can, okay, work on.
Sure. Jerome Jones. I'm a lender relations specialist at the SBA. Been here just over 4 years, but my background has been in banking and finance in one way, shape, or form for over 25 years. So this is hopefully my last stop. And with that, I will get started so you can wrap up your day here. All right, can you guys see that?
Yes, thank you.
All righty. So we at the SBA have a four-pronged approach. We are we help businesses access the right tools at the right time, build their business smarts, and gain the confidence to move forward. We do that primarily through our resource partners, SCORE and the Small Business Development Centers. If you're not familiar with your local SBDC, definitely utilize that resource. They are greatly underutilized. You can go to our website. We have a listing of all of the SBDCs in the country, actually. But they can help small businesses with putting together, they won't do the business plan, but they'll help you with the resources to put your business plan together, financial projections, marketing, advertising. They have great classes for young entrepreneurs and existing entrepreneurs. And the SBA administrator position is also now a cabinet level position. So she reports directly to the president. These are our three pillars here at the SBA: capital, contracting, and counseling. We're most known for capital. Oddly enough, we don't lend any money directly, but through our programs, which I'll go over a little bit later, that's what we're most known for. But we also have a very robust contracting program. So our 8A, the number 8 and the letter A, contracting program helps small businesses gain access to government contracts. And it's a very good program. It lasts for 9 years. If you utilize it, I personally know of great success stories like Tamara had. There are a number of great success stories using our 8A program. And then lastly, the counseling, mentoring, and free business consulting. Mentoring is primarily through SCORE. And the consulting and low-cost training is primarily through the SBDC network. Now, what do? We help lenders. Well, I'm going to go over conventional lending versus SBA lending, some benefits of utilizing SBA, some tools, and some key takeaways at the end. So the easy deals for a banker, and being a recovering banker myself, I can tell you these are the ones that get bankers all tingly. That businesses they're established. They've been around for years. Stable cash flow, so they've been making money for years. Proven financials, cash flow coverage, great collateral, personal credit scores of 750 plus. Those are easy. Those are few and far between. So with the SBA guarantee, we help the banks minimize their risk, expand their presence in the markets, have some customers for life because SBA customers are very loyal to the lender that helped them get started, and gain access to the secondary market. So benefits to borrowers, we offer reasonable terms. Our loans can go as far as 25 years if there's real estate involved. Smaller equity requirements, 10% down, typically, some instances, 5% down. Longer repayment terms mean lower payments. So we can stretch out that term to improve your cash flow with lower payments. Now we allow for projection-based lending. So that allows us through our lending partners to do startups and expansions. A lot of lenders are reluctant to do startups, and by SBA standards, anything less than 2 years old is a startup. Lending with collateral shortfalls. So we don't necessarily require that a lender get one-to-one collateral coverage, meaning $1 in collateral to cover every dollar of debt. Not necessarily. We do require that they get all available collateral. And if it's a little short, that's a good opportunity to use our SBA lending program. Lending for multiple business purposes. So virtually any legal lending purpose the SBA allows. Financing changes of ownership and refinancing business debt, even personal debt, if it can be easily traced back to the business. Again, what can you use it for? Virtually any legal lending purpose, lines of credit, working capital, and obviously any fixed asset purchases, real estate, machinery, and equipment. You can get as little as $500. That's typically through our micro lending partners, and I'll touch on that at the end, all the way up to $5.5 million. Now, you must be a for-profit business. I know with EIDL and PPP, we did allow for nonprofits to participate because we realized that both for-profit and nonprofit were equally impacted by the pandemic. But now that we're back to normal lending, you must be for-profit and you must do business in the US and be physically located and headquartered in the US. You can have a foreign subsidiary. Now, these are the ineligible businesses. Again, nonprofits, no passive holders of real estate. So what that means is the business applying for the loan, if real estate is the project, they must occupy 51% of the real estate. So you can't use an SBA loan to purchase a strip center or rent out property. It must be owned by or cannot be owned by non-citizens. The business itself cannot be involved in gambling. You cannot restrict patronage. The business itself cannot promote religion. However, we could say lend to a daycare that happens to be located inside of a church, as long as they didn't restrict patronage, that would be fine. So no consumer or marketing co-ops, so no pyramids. The business cannot be of a prurient nature, so no adult bookstores or gentlemen's clubs or anything like that. The loan cannot be made to an individual of poor character. So now that is not to say if you had a scrape with the law in the past that you're automatically ineligible. There's a little short hurdle that I always apply. It either has to be remote in time or minor in nature. And you cannot have a prior loss to the government. So if you've defaulted on a student loan or obviously an SBA loan, a VA loan, any type of government funding. Now you can be delinquent on federal taxes, but have a payment plan in place that you've been paying on as agreed for preferably 12 months, then you may be eligible. Now, who can be an SBA lender? Obviously, all your conventional lenders. So, and at this point, virtually every bank and credit union out there is an SBA lender. There's a handful that aren't. And non-bank lenders, there are a lot of those that came into play during PPP that are SBA lenders now. And then mission-based lenders such as CDCs, which I'll touch on, and community advantage lenders and micro lenders, and I'll go over those as well. Now our CDCs do 504 loans. I'll cover those. They also do State of Ohio 166 loans, which are participation loans similar to 504. And they also have some local programs through the county and through the city. Now our programs, we have three main programs: an SBA 504 loan, an SBA 7A loan, under which the Community Advantage and International Trade loans fall, and then the SBA microloans. So 7A is our most widely known and utilized program because, again, you can use the 7A for anything. It's a guarantee loan. You can get up to $5 million with exposure of 3.75 million. And then the SBA small loan, which goes now up to 500,000 with an aggregated exposure of 85% on loans up to 150,000 and 75% for loans greater than 150,000. And let me take a minute to explain how that guarantee works. It's not actually on the loan. That guarantee is actually on the loss. And what I mean by that is, let's say the lender does a loan for $200,000. Well, again, we don't mind collateral shortfalls, but we want them to get all available collateral. So they're going to try to collateralize that loan with as much collateral as they can. They're also going to get personal guarantees of all 20% or more owners of the company. And let's say in 4 years the loan goes bad. Well, they're going to sell the collateral to get as much as they can. They're going to exercise their personal guarantees to get as much as they can from the owners. Whatever they don't collect, they'll bring back to the SBA. And since that original loan was over 150,000, we'll cut them a check for 75% of any loss that they incur. And if that original loan had been 150,000 or less, we'd cut them a check for 75 or 85% of any loss that they would incur. So it's meant to incentivize a lender to do a loan that they may otherwise decline. Now, under the 7A program, we have our export program. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that, but I just want you to think about this. You don't have to do business direct. You don't have to export directly. Let's say you have a contract with Honda. Since Honda does exporting, you may have access to the Export Express loan program. Works just like the 7A program that I explained. So the Community Advantage pilot also falls under our 7A loan programs, just 7A in slightly different clothing, and that's used by our mission-based lenders. In the Columbus area, we have two. That's the Finance Fund and then ECDI. I'll cover ECDI in depth a little later. And we have our Veterans Advantage program. So if the business is 51% owned by a veteran or a spouse of a veteran or a widow of a veteran, you get an SBA 7A Express loan up to $500,000 with no fees. Now, right now, that advantage is spread to everyone because until September, there are no fees for any SBA Express loan up to $500,000. But for everyone but veterans, that goes away October 1. So our SBA 504 program, this is primarily used to purchase real estate for the business. Again, the business has to occupy 51% of the real estate. How the program works, it's a participation loan. So a lender, and in the case of the 504, any lender, they don't have to be an SBA lender, would do 50% of the loan. So for simple math, let's say it's $1 million building, the lender would do $500,000. You as the borrower would put in 10%, and a CDC on behalf of the SBA would do 40% of the loan. The advantage with that 40% is that rate is fixed for up to 25 years. Now, you can technically use it for real estate. However, there's not much, or excuse me, you can technically use it for equipment. However, there's not much in the way of equipment anymore that has a useful life of at least 10 years. And it only comes in 3 flavors, a 10-year term, a 20-year term, and a 25-year term. Maybe a large CNC metal stamping machine would qualify. There's just not much that would qualify, but technically you could use it for equipment. Now, there are a couple of instances where that 10% would go up and the CDC portion would go down. If that business is a startup and that's anything that's 2 years or less, the 10% would go to 15% and the 40% would go down to 35%. Now, keep in mind that even if you would happen to purchase a business that's been around for 100 years, because it's a change in management and ownership, that would be a startup all over again. Also, if the real estate is single use or special purpose, so something that's not easily converted to a plain white box building. So think car washes, think hotels. Those would be an additional 5% down. So for a total of 15%. Now, the SBA microloan program, and in the state of Ohio, we only have one SBA microlender, and that's ECDI, Economic and Community Development Institute. They do all of our microlending. We lend them money to lend to small businesses that don't fit into a conventional lender's typical risk profile. So think a very young business, a startup, think a startup restaurant, which lenders really don't like. Rolling stock and wanting to buy a used truck that fits squarely into ECDI's world. When you see up to $50,000, that's just the SBA's participation. ECDI has over 50 pools of funds to pull from, so they can lend much higher than $50,000. Now, ECDI also happens to be a community advantage lender, so they can go up to $350,000 for any purpose except real estate, because the term is capped at 5 years for microloans. So equipment, inventory, working capital, typically 10% down, interest rates around 10%, a little bit less. So these are tools for lenders. Don't mean a whole lot unless you're a lender, but I do want to mention this. Lender Match. So Lender Match is a link on our website. Think of Lender Match as eHarmony. So lenders go to Lender Match and they create a profile of the kind of loans they're looking for. And then borrowers would go to Lender Match and they would put in the deal that they want financing for. Let's say they're looking for $200,000 for equipment and working capital. That any lender that fit into that profile would receive an email saying that we've got someone out here looking for $200,000 for equipment and working capital. So the lender would reach out directly to the borrower. And if the lender chooses not to, no one knows. It's just like eHarmony. You swipe left or you swipe right. We just act as the site. And that's mainly for lenders, so we'll have to cover that. And that is my contact information and my counterpart here at the SBA. We are both lender relations specialists and can help you with any of your lending questions. That is it for me.
Okay, wonderful. Awesome. Thank you very, very, very much. We're just 4 minutes over, so that was just good timing. Thank you for being flexible as well. Any questions from any attendees before we wrap it up and end our session? I will send out the agenda for next week's session. I'll send that out on Tuesday, along with the recording for this session. So if you have any questions in the meantime, or need to reach out to anyone who is a speaker and you didn't get their contact information, just feel free to reach out to me and I'll give that to you. So thank you everyone for your time. Greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate it. And we will see everyone next week and have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Guys, take
Guys,
care.
take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you so much.